Hello everyone, this is Rob with MMORPG.com. Today I'm going to talk to you about the crafting system in the Elder Scrolls Online. I've seen a number of people gush over how good crafting is in this game. I believe that is because how relevant crafting is even towards the end game, whereas in most MMOs it isn't worth your time anymore to bother with crafted gear. The crafting system itself, however, isn't all that exciting. You'll be able to learn all 6 professions: blacksmithing, woodworking, tailoring, alchemy, enchanting, and provisioning, aka cooking. But before we dive into that, let's talk about resource gathering, since that will provide us the building blocks with which we need to work. In the background, while I was talking, you should have noticed that I mined a couple of iron nodes, gathered insect parts from butterflies, and collected clear water from a backpack. You might have also noticed that the mining nodes had a glowing aura around them. This is because of the crafting passive skill that I learned called Keen Eye Ore. I also have Miner Hireling and Metalworking too. My Miner Hireling mails me items once every 24 hours with the chance to not only send me ore, but to send me rare crafting materials as well. Metalworking 2 allows me to craft with the next higher level of ore. If you plan on doing all the crafting professions, I would strongly suggest that you get Keen Eye and reagents before you get Keen Eye and ore, because the ore nodes are very easy to see, whereas the reagents can sometimes be tricky to find. Also, when it comes to gathering, there's no skill level involved, so there's no barrier to prevent you from hopping into Cyrodiil and mining the highest level iron when you're only level 10. Now let's actually get to the crafting. Woodworking, blacksmithing, and tailoring are all essentially the same crafting, just you're making different items and using different materials. You have creation, improvement, extraction, and research. On the research, you'll see here that we have apparel for clothing, and we'll slowly go to the right and look and see which items we have that we can learn researchable traits in. Currently, we don't have any items that we can research with. However, we have already learned infused for the sash. So we can go to creation, we can go over to the right until we find the sash. We can click on our jute, which is the material we use to make the sash, and the more material we use, you'll notice the higher level of item we'll actually make. This is level 14 with 19 armor. Then we can choose which style. We can go with Khajiit, which is what I am, so I know that, but I also know Altmer because I located a racial book in the starting area, which allows me to make clothes in that line, and that's how you learn different races, is by finding books. And I have a bloodstone, which I can put the infused trait, and as you see, that will add 8% increased armor enchantment effect. So I went ahead and I crafted this, and you can see that I successfully made a homespun sash. Now we'll go to improvement. You can see there's a tanning chart down here. We'll pick which item we want to use to improve, and we'll go over here and we will select additional items, which will increase our chance of successfully improving this item until it's actually 100%. We will accept it, and we'll notice the improvement is successful. You can do it with fewer items, but if you choose to do so, you run the risk of having your improvement fail. I've run over to the blacksmithing station to show you how research actually works. I'll sort through my weapons, and as you notice, there's nothing that I can do to research. However, when I check the armor and I scroll over to girdle, I have one trait available, and this is impenetrable. It reduces the chance for me to be critically struck. I go ahead and select the girdle, and it destroys it, but it allows me to learn the trait impenetrable. This will actually take 6 hours real time to research and learn. However, you do not have to be in game. You can select this and then immediately log out, and it will continue to research while you're offline. Besides mining materials in the wild and having them mailed to you by assistants, you can also deconstruct gear for raw materials. In fact, you'll have to use the deconstruct tab to refine the ore that you find in the wild. As you see here, I refined some high iron ore, and not only did I get iron ingots, I got a honing stone. The honing stone is a blacksmith equivalent that allows you to temper or improve your weapons. You can scale these all the way through fine, superior, epic, and legendary quality. Again, this is a reason why crafting, while not necessarily the most exciting aspect in the Elder Scrolls Online, continues to be an important aspect all the way through leveling and still at the end game. Cooking is actually different from the previous 3 mentioned crafting abilities. In order to cook, or provision, you'll have to find a cooking fire. These are typically located in inns. You don't discover new recipes by cooking. You actually have to find the recipes throughout the world. Typically they can be drops off enemies, you can find them hidden in chests, barrels. Any place that you could find a reagent for cooking, you can also find a recipe for cooking. You can see here the recipes that I've currently learned and the ingredients that they require to cook. However, I don't actually have all the ingredients needed to cook, so you just have to take my word that it actually works. And you're left with a food item that you can eat, which typically buffs your character for around 40 to 45 minutes. Next up is Enchanting. There are 2 things you can do with Enchanting. One is creation, the other is destruction. In order to create an enchant, you're going to need 3 different pieces of a rune phrase. These come in the shape of a square, a circle, and a pyramid that's missing its corners. You'll notice these rune phrases have different properties associated with them. Sometimes you know the translations, sometimes you don't. You learn them through attempting to make glyphs. So unlike cooking, where you need a recipe, in Enchanting, you try to figure them out on your own. As you can see here, I actually translated Parade and Dekipa to add and frost. So these 2 items would let me add frost resistance to a certain type of enchantment that I could then later put on armor or a weapon. I attempted to make another glyph and I learned that deny means stamina. So anytime that I want to try and create an enchant that has stamina, I would want to make sure that I use that as the middle piece of my rune phrase. Here you can see I have glyphs that I just made, and now I can extract them and get pieces back and make different runes in case I didn't like those. You'll see there are different levels of runes. There are superior and fine materials to make them, and you will have to have higher skills that you'll learn through traits in order to create those enchants. Last, we have Alchemy. As you see, I approached an alchemy station and hit E to interact with it just like you would any of the other 5 previous cooking, crafting, whatever you have at stations. In order to make a potion, you'll have to have a solvent. These are different types of water that you can find. This one you saw that I picked out of a bag earlier in the video. You also have to choose reagents. I chose to use bug loss and Nimroot, and as you can see, the alchemic reaction failed and yielded no results. Looking at my reagents, I can see that bug loss and the water flower both have restore health properties, so chances are that if I combine them together, I create a tincture of health. Again, like Enchanting, you don't learn recipes out in the wild, you learn them from experimentation. Unlike cooking, where you have to have the recipe. You can also try and double click on any reagent and learn traits just like you would in previous Elder Scrolls games. Oh, and by the way, remember those bug parts I caught earlier off that butterfly? Turns out you can use those too. They're involved in fishing. You'll find fishing nodes scattered throughout the world. They'll either be on shorelines or you can find them actually in rivers and ponds as well. Typically you'll be able to notice them by fish jumping out. Sometimes they're kind of hard to find. You'll have to walk up to the fishing hole, hold down E and select your bait. In this case I'm going to use the bug parts. Cast it in there and eventually you can catch different types of fish. Depending on the types of parts you use will determine the type of fish you catch. Some are used for trophies as you can just sell and get some money. Others are actually used in cooking, which is how it ties in. This is another form of collection, and while not totally crafting, it's a way to spend some time. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below if you have any further questions. I'll try to answer them as best I can. You can find me on social media using Twitter @Grakulen, Grakulen. Thanks for watching.